My name is Hudson, 30 years old, and the youngest of 4 siblings who never made me feel like family. Growing up, Marcus, Allison, and Jack formed their exclusive club, one I was never invited to join. When they each got married, the pattern continued: 3 weddings, 3 deliberate exclusions that cut deeper than they could imagine. Now engaged to my amazing fiancée Sophia, I'm planning our wedding with one thought in mind. After years of being shut out, it's finally my turn. Before I share how I gave my siblings a taste of their own medicine, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from. Family drama hits differently when you've lived it, and trust me, this revenge was served at the perfect temperature. I grew up in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, where most families had 2 or 3 kids who played together after school. Our house stood out with 4 children, though from the outside, no one would guess I barely belonged. The age gap between us was significant. Marcus is 39 now, Allison 37, and Jack 35. Those years made all the difference in how they viewed me. Not as a brother, but as an unwanted addition. My parents, Richard and Diana, ran a small family-owned hardware store that consumed most of their waking hours. The business provided for us comfortably but required their constant attention, especially during my early years when the economy faltered. Their absence created a household where my siblings essentially raised themselves and resented having to occasionally watch over me. Marcus, Allison, and Jack formed an impenetrable trio from my earliest memories. They shared inside jokes, secret languages, and most painfully, a unified front against including me in anything they deemed important. I can still picture the treehouse my father built in our backyard oak tree when Marcus turned 12. Within days, a hand-painted sign appeared on the ladder: "No babies allowed." I was only 3 then, but the message was clear and became a theme for the next 2 decades of my life. As they grew older, their methods of exclusion became more sophisticated. When they'd venture out on neighborhood bike adventures, they'd wait until Mom sent me to brush my teeth before sneaking out the back door. I'd emerge to an empty house, confused and hurt, while they explored the creek beds and abandoned lots that bordered our subdivision. By the time I'd learned to ride well enough to keep up, they'd moved on to skateboarding or hanging out at friends' houses, always one step ahead in their efforts to leave me behind. The summer I turned 8, our parents splurged on a family trip to Disney World, a once-in-a-lifetime vacation for a family running a small business during uncertain times. My excitement was boundless until the second day when I woke up alone in the hotel room with a hastily scribbled note: "Gone to Space Mountain. Too tall for you anyway." I spent 3 hours terrified in the hotel until a housekeeper helped contact security. My parents cut their own ride short to find me, but my siblings merely shrugged when confronted. "We thought he'd slow us down," Jack explained without remorse. When I'd complained to my parents, their responses followed a predictable pattern. "They're just older, Hudson. They want their space," my mother would say, smoothing my hair while already turning her attention back to dinner preparations or store inventory. My father's approach was even less helpful. "Toughen up, son. Siblings fight. They'll come around." But they never did, and my parents never insisted. Instead of forcing my way into their world, I developed my own coping mechanisms. While they claimed the backyard and basement recreation room, I transformed my bedroom into a sanctuary. I devoured books about adventure and friendship, built intricate model airplanes, and taught myself to code using an outdated computer my father brought home from a yard sale. I became self-sufficient out of necessity, developing solitary hobbies that didn't require the approval or participation of others. The one bright spot was my friendship with Tyler Johnson, who lived 3 houses down. An only child with parents who welcomed the constant presence of a quiet, well-behaved friend, Tyler's home became my refuge. His parents invited me on camping trips, cheered at my school presentations, and remembered my food preferences, all things my own family rarely managed. Mrs. Johnson once commented that I was practically family, a casual remark that brought unexpected tears I quickly blamed on allergies. My 10th birthday stands out as particularly painful. My mother had planned a modest party at the local bowling alley, inviting classmates with colorful cards I'd helped address. The morning of the celebration arrived, and we waited as the reserved lanes remained empty. An hour past the start time, my mother began making calls, discovering that my siblings had told my friends the party had been rescheduled for the following weekend. Just a misunderstanding, my father insisted, but the smirks exchanged between Marcus and Allison told the true story. We bowled as a family instead, my siblings complaining throughout about missing other plans. That birthday sparked something in me, not just hurt, but determination. If I couldn't earn their respect through family connection, I'd force their acknowledgement through achievement. I threw myself into academics, joining the school newspaper in middle school and the debate team in high school. I accumulated trophies and certificates that my parents proudly displayed, though my siblings dismissed them as teachers' pet awards. By 17, I'd secured a substantial scholarship to a prestigious university on the opposite coast, an achievement even Marcus, who'd attended the state college on our parents' dime, couldn't diminish. The night I received my acceptance packet, my mother called me into the kitchen after dinner, my siblings already dispersed to their rooms or out with friends. "You know we're proud of you," she said, hands nervously folding a dish towel, "but it's so far away. Are you sure you want to move across the country?" That question contained the first recognition that I existed as an independent person with desires that might not center around our family dynamic. I remember feeling both validated and sad that it had taken 17 years and imminent departure to prompt this awareness. "I'm sure, Mom," I replied, already picturing the freedom of a place where no one knew me as the forgotten fourth child. Our last dinner as a complete family before I left for college remains etched in my memory, not for any meaningful connection, but for its awkward formality. My parents had insisted everyone attend, resulting in an uncomfortable meal where my siblings checked their phones under the table and offered monosyllabic congratulations when prompted. I left for school the following week, with a curious mixture of excitement and relief, already sensing that distance might be my best defense against a lifetime of subtle rejection. By sophomore year of college, I'd created a life that felt authentically mine. My communication studies major played to my strengths, professors appreciated my thorough work, and I'd formed solid friendships with people who actually enjoyed my company. 3,000 miles from Portland, I rarely thought about the siblings who'd spent years making me feel invisible. The November phone call from my mother disrupted that hard-won peace. "Marcus proposed to Natalie last weekend," she announced, her voice brimming with excitement. "They're planning a June wedding." My brother had been dating Natalie for nearly 3 years, so the news wasn't surprising, but my reaction caught me off guard. Despite everything, a flicker of hope ignited. A wedding, a fresh start, a new family member, an opportunity to reset our relationship as adults rather than resentful children. "That's great news," I replied with genuine enthusiasm. "I'll check my exam schedule, but I should be able to fly back for a long weekend in June." My mother made an affirmative sound before changing the subject to my classes. Looking back, I should have recognized her evasiveness as the warning it was. Thanksgiving break brought me home for the first time since summer. The house looked smaller somehow, my childhood bedroom preserved yet feeling like it belonged to someone else. Marcus and Natalie joined us for dinner, bringing glossy wedding magazines and venue brochures that dominated conversation. "We're thinking about the riverfront gardens," Natalie gushed, showing photos of an elegant glass-walled venue overlooking the Willamette River. "They have the most amazing sunset view for the reception." Marcus seemed different around her, softer, more animated. He actually acknowledged me with questions about school, and for a brief, foolish moment, I imagined my brother had matured beyond childhood grudges. When Natalie mentioned needing help assembling welcome bags for out-of-town guests, I volunteered immediately, eager to contribute. "That's so sweet, Hudson," she said, touching my arm. "We'll definitely keep that in mind." Later that evening, while helping my mother clear dishes, I overheard Marcus in the living room with Allison and Jack, their voices carrying through the heating vent. "What are we doing about the kid problem?" Allison asked, a term that instantly transported me back to family vacations where I was always the logistical challenge. "I'm handling it," Marcus replied, his voice lower. "The venue has strict guest limits, so we're using that." "He'll believe that?" Jack sounded skeptical. "Why wouldn't he? It's not like he knows anything about wedding planning." Their laughter felt like ice water down my spine. 20 years old, halfway through college, and still the kid problem to be managed and dismissed. I stood frozen in the kitchen, plates in hand, as my mother pretended not to hear, busying herself with wrapping leftovers. The next morning I confronted Marcus as he grabbed coffee before heading back to his apartment. My parents and siblings were still asleep, giving us a rare moment alone. "I heard you talking last night," I said, cutting straight to the point. "About the kid problem. That's still what I am to you?" Marcus had the decency to look momentarily uncomfortable before his expression hardened into familiar dismissiveness. "Don't eavesdrop on private conversations, Hudson. So it's true? You're using fake venue restrictions to exclude me from your wedding?" He sighed, setting down his coffee mug. "Look, it's not personal. Natalie and I want a certain vibe, and the guest list got complicated with her large family. The venue does have capacity restrictions, enough to include every cousin and college friend, but not your own brother. You wouldn't enjoy it anyway," he said, his tone suggesting he was being reasonable. "It's mostly older people, Natalie's family, our friends. You'd be bored." That evening, I researched riverfront gardens online, easily finding their capacity information. Comfortable seating for up to 250 guests with dance floor. I also discovered multiple packages that allowed for additional guests at a per-person fee. There were no strict limits, only the limits of budget and preference. My mother found me in my room, staring at the laptop screen. "Hudson," she began, sitting hesitantly on the edge of the bed. "I want to talk about Marcus's wedding." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, turning the laptop to show her the venue information. "The guest limit excuse is a lie. He just doesn't want me there." Her eyes filled with tears, confirming what I already knew. He and Natalie have a specific vision for their day. Sometimes couples get caught up in wedding details and lose perspective on what's important. "And what's important to you, Mom? Because it seems like you and Dad are fine with me being the only immediate family member not invited to my own brother's wedding." She had no answer, just a tearful exit and a closed door. My father attempted damage control the following day, awkwardly offering me $300 to do something fun that weekend instead. The money felt like confirmation that my absence was being purchased, rather than mourned a transaction that valued family harmony above my inclusion. That Thanksgiving marked my first devastating realization. My parents weren't just passive observers of my exclusion, but active enablers who prioritized keeping peace with my siblings over standing up for me. The official wedding invitation arrived at my parents' house in April, addressed only to Richard and Diana Walker. My mother called to tell me, her voice carefully neutral, as if reporting the weather instead of another deliberate rejection. The June weekend of Marcus's wedding found me alone in my summer apartment near campus, my roommates gone home for break. Instagram and Facebook became instruments of torture as I scrolled through photos of family members in formal wear, gathering at the venue I'd researched months earlier. My cousin posted a group shot captioned, "Walker Family Representing," that included every aunt, uncle, and cousin except me. A week later, Marcus sent a text. "Sorry you couldn't make it. Wedding was great. We'll send photos when we get them," as if I'd had a scheduling conflict. As if the decision had been mine. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling fan, I had my first thoughts of eventual revenge. Not something destructive or dramatic, but a perfect karmic response when the time was right. However, I pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on building a life where I didn't need the approval or inclusion of people who had spent 2 decades proving I didn't matter to them. 2 years passed in a blur of academic achievements and growing independence. By senior year, I'd secured a promising marketing internship with a Seattle tech firm that all but guaranteed full-time employment after graduation. My life was taking shape exactly as I'd planned, 3,000 miles from the family that had never made space for me. The email from my mother arrived during finals week. "Allison and Brendan got engaged last weekend. Planning a fall wedding. Call when you can." Despite everything, that familiar flicker of hope returned. Perhaps Marcus's exclusion had been an anomaly, a mistake Allison wouldn't repeat. After all, she had always been slightly less hostile than our brothers, occasionally including me in movie nights when no better options presented themselves. After finishing exams, I made an impulsive decision to fly home without warning. Perhaps showing up, being physically present instead of a distant voice on the phone, would remind them I was a real person with feelings, not just an inconvenient afterthought. I arrived on a Saturday afternoon, taking a rideshare from the airport while my mother was at the store. The surprise on her face when she walked in to find me in the kitchen was genuine first joy, then unmistakable anxiety. "Hudson, we weren't expecting you until next month," she exclaimed, setting down grocery bags. "Thought I'd surprise everyone," I replied, helping unpack the groceries. "Where's Dad?" "Golf with his friends." "And Allison is?" She paused as the front door opened, revealing my sister and her fiancé Brendan, clutching wedding magazines and fabric swatches. Allison froze momentarily before her expression shifted to something resembling panic. "Hudson, what are you doing here?" "Surprising you. Congratulations on your engagement." I extended my hand to Brendan, who seemed confused by the tension. "I'm Hudson, Allison's brother." "Right, of course," he said, shaking my hand. "Allison mentioned you're in college back east." "Mentioned me?" "That's something at least," I replied with forced lightness. Allison checked her watch with exaggerated concern. "We actually have an appointment with the florist in 20 minutes. We just stopped to pick up the color samples." Before I could respond, they were gathering their things and making hasty excuses. Brendan looked bewildered, but followed Allison's lead as she practically pushed him back toward the door. "We should catch up later," I called after them. "Sure, yeah, definitely," she responded without turning around. My mother busied herself arranging groceries, avoiding my gaze. "They're very busy with wedding planning," she offered weakly. "So I see," I replied. "Maybe I could help? I have design experience from the marketing internship. I could assist with the website or invitations." The look of discomfort on my mother's face told me everything before she even spoke. "Oh, sweetheart, that's thoughtful. But Allison is very particular. She and her college roommate are handling all that." "Mom," I said quietly, "is Allison planning to exclude me from her wedding too?" She abandoned the groceries, sitting heavily at the kitchen table. "It's not exactly that. She's planning what she calls a friends-only wedding. Very casual, just their close social circle." "Friends-only usually means no family at all," I pointed out. "Is that the case?" Her silence was damning. Over the next 2 days, I pieced together the truth through careful questions to extended family members. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all had received save-the-date cards for Allison's intimate celebration at a rustic vineyard venue. The only family member not included was me. I confronted Allison at her apartment, having texted ahead this time to prevent another hasty escape. "Just tell me the truth," I said, standing in her meticulously decorated living room. "Why am I the only family member excluded from your supposedly friends-only wedding?" She sighed dramatically, as though I was creating an unreasonable problem. "Hudson, it's nothing personal. You just wouldn't fit in with my friends. You don't know them. You don't share our history. I don't know Brendan's family either. But they're invited. That's different. They're his family. And I'm yours," I countered, my voice cracking slightly. "Whether you like it or not." Something in her expression hardened. "Look, this isn't new. We've never been close. Marcus, Jack and I grew up together. We have the group chat, the inside jokes, the shared experiences. You were always just, too, there, on the periphery." "You have a group chat?" The revelation shouldn't have hurt as much as it did. She rolled her eyes. "Since high school. We call it -1. The moment the words left her mouth, she had the grace to look slightly ashamed. "-1, I repeated, the meaning crystal clear. "Well, thanks for the honesty, I guess." "Hudson, don't make this a bigger deal than it is. It's just a party." "It's not just a party. It's a deliberate choice to exclude me from family events, over and over again. And the worst part? Mom and Dad let you do it." She had no response for that, just an uncomfortable shrug before checking the time and mentioning another appointment. Back at my parents' house, their defense was even weaker than during Marcus's wedding. My father attempted to explain that Allison has always been headstrong, while my mother suggested I focus on the positive aspects of family connections. What positive aspects? I asked, genuinely curious what she could possibly point to. Neither had an answer. I cut my visit short, declining to attend the family Thanksgiving where Allison's wedding would undoubtedly dominate conversation. Instead, I accepted Tyler's invitation to join his family in Chicago, where he was now attending graduate school. The contrast between the warm welcome of the Johnson family and the cool dismissal of my own was both comforting and painful. When Christmas arrived, I returned home only because my grandmother specifically requested all grandchildren be present for what might be her last holiday. The forced family gathering included an excruciating moment when Allison passed around her professional wedding photos, narrating each image while I sat silently, excluded from both the event and the memories. I maintained a stoic expression throughout, saving my breakdown for the privacy of my childhood bedroom that night. As tears finally came, I made a New Year's resolution to build my own family through friendships and relationships with people who actively wanted me in their lives, rather than continuing to seek acceptance from those who had consistently denied it. After graduation, I accepted the full-time position at the Seattle marketing firm where I'd interned. The cross-country move felt symbolic, not just leaving the East Coast campus that had been my temporary home, but creating permanent geographic distance from the family dynamics that had defined my childhood. Seattle suited me. The creative energy of the tech industry matched my ambitions, and the city's reputation for polite but reserved residents meant I could build connections at my own pace. 6 months into my new position, I met Sophia during a collaborative project between our departments. With dark hair, quick wit, and a kindness that never felt forced, she was unlike anyone I'd dated in college. Our relationship progressed naturally, weeknight dinners evolving into weekend hiking trips, and eventually meeting her close-knit family, who lived just outside the city. The Liu household operated with a warmth and inclusion that initially made me uncomfortable simply because it was so unfamiliar. Sophia's parents insisted I join their weekly Sunday dinners, her father teaching me to make proper dumplings while her mother kept my favorite tea stocked in their pantry. "Your family must miss having you on the opposite coast," Mr. Liu commented once, his assumption of normal family bonds both touching and painful. "We're not particularly close," I replied, focusing intently on folding dumpling dough. It was during this peaceful period of building my own life that the family group text, the one I was actually included in, chimed with Jack's announcement, "Proposed to Kristen yesterday. She said yes, planning for spring wedding next year." Congratulatory messages flooded the thread from parents, extended family, and of course, Marcus and Allison. I stared at my phone, wondering how to respond. 2 previous weddings, 2 deliberate exclusions, yet some stubborn part of me still sought connection, still believed that perhaps this time would be different. I decided on a final attempt at reconciliation. Rather than just sending a text, I purchased an expensive crystal picture frame from a local artisan, had it engraved with Jack and Kristen's names and engagement date, and shipped it to their apartment with a heartfelt note expressing my genuine happiness for them. 2 weeks later, the package returned to my Seattle address, unopened but with a handwritten sticky note attached. "Thanks, but we're keeping it small." Not even the courtesy of opening the gift. Not even the pretense of appreciation. When my mother called that evening, I let it go to voicemail, unable to face another gentle explanation of why my presence wasn't required at yet another family milestone. Her message was exactly what I expected. "Hudson, Honey, Jack, and Kristen are planning a very intimate ceremony. Just immediate family and a few close friends. I know you'll understand." I called her back the next day, my voice calm despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Mom, I am immediate family. I'm his brother." Her uncomfortable silence stretched until I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she sighed. "I know, sweetheart. I've tried talking to them, all 3 of them. Your father and I both have." "Not hard enough," I replied, surprising even myself with the bitterness in my tone. This prompted an unexpected confession from my father, who apparently had been listening on the extension. "Hudson, there's something you should understand. Your siblings. They've always been jealous of you. Jealous? The concept seemed absurd. What could they possibly be jealous of? Your achievements, your independence, the way you've always been self-sufficient while they depended on us well into adulthood. Marcus didn't move out until 26, and we paid his rent for 2 years after that. Allison changed majors 3 times and took 6 years to graduate. Jack barely finished community college. And that's supposed to excuse them treating me like I don't exist? No, my mother interjected. We're not excusing it. We're trying to explain it. Well, your explanations are 20 years too late, I replied, ending the call before emotion could overtake me. Curiosity drove me to search online for information about Jack's wedding. Within minutes, I discovered a detailed wedding website with password-protected sections for guests. The public portion revealed plans for a lavish celebration with 200 guests at a mountain resort. So much for intimate ceremony. More disturbing than the lie was the Our Story section featuring family photos through the years: Jack's graduation, family vacations, holiday gatherings, all carefully selected to exclude any trace of my existence. A stranger viewing the site would assume Jack was the youngest of 3 siblings, not 4. I called Jack directly, something I rarely did. To my surprise, he answered, "Hudson, this is unexpected. I saw your wedding website," I said, skipping pleasantries. "Interesting how you've erased me from the family history." He sighed, not bothering to deny it. "What do you want me to say?" "Those photos represent our shared experiences. Experiences you deliberately excluded me from, even when I was physically present. You cropped me out of the Christmas photo from 2013. I was standing right next to Dad." "Look," Jack said, his tone suddenly direct, "I'm going to be honest in a way Marcus and Allison haven't been. We never considered you part of our group. We grew up together, the 3 of us, through elementary school, middle school, high school. You were just the afterthought. The kid who came along when we already had our dynamic established." The cruelty of his honesty was somehow worse than the previous pretenses. "I was 3 years younger than you, Jack. Not a different species. You chose to exclude me at every turn. And we're still making that choice," he replied. "I don't expect you to understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. And someday, you might understand too." I hung up, hands shaking with a combination of rage and resolution. That conversation represented the final straw, not just another exclusion, but the unapologetic admission that it had always been deliberate. I drafted a careful email to my parents explaining that I needed distance from the entire family. Their response was to suggest family therapy, a solution 25 years overdue, and promptly rejected by my siblings, who saw no problem to address. The final confirmation that distance was necessary came during the holidays when my parents' annual card arrived, featuring a family photo taken during Jack's wedding weekend, all 3 siblings, and my parents, smiling in formal attire, with no acknowledgement of my absence, not even a separate photo of me included. It was as if I'd been not just excluded from the event, but erased from the family entirely. Showing the card to Sophia prompted her first genuine anger on my behalf. As an only child raised by parents who treasured her, she found my siblings' behavior incomprehensible and my parents' enabling unforgivable. "They don't deserve you," she stated flatly, tossing the card into the recycling bin. "Family isn't just shared DNA. It's showing up. It's making space. It's celebrating each other." Her indignation gave me permission for my own, and that night became a turning point. Curled on our couch, I finally allowed myself to fully feel the accumulated hurt of decades, not just the wedding exclusions, but every dismissive comment, every intentional oversight, every moment I was made to feel that my existence was an inconvenience rather than a joy. Sophia held me through that breakdown, and in the morning, something had shifted. The constant ache of seeking approval from people determined to withhold it had begun to subside, replaced by the certainty that I deserved better. I deserved the family I was building, friends who chose my company, colleagues who valued my contributions, and most importantly, Sophia, who loved me without reservation or condition. 2 years passed with minimal contact with my family. Occasional text exchanges with my parents, birthday calls that remained surface level, and complete silence from my siblings. During this time, My career flourished as I was promoted to creative director, managing a team that consistently produced award-winning campaigns. More importantly, my relationship with Sophia deepened through challenges and celebrations alike. When a health scare sent her father to the hospital, I took leave from work to help the family navigate medical decisions. When my presentation won our agency a major client, Sophia organized a surprise dinner with friends to celebrate. We built rituals and memories that became the foundation of our shared life. On our second anniversary, I planned a weekend hiking trip to Mount Rainier, Sophia's favorite outdoor escape. As the sunrise painted the snow-capped peak in golden light, I knelt on the mountain trail and asked her to marry me. The ring, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, caught the morning light as tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, then shouted ecstatically to the empty mountain landscape. "Yes." That evening, after celebratory champagne and calls to her delighted family, the inevitable question arose. "Should we call your parents?" Sophia asked gently, knowing the complicated territory we were entering. I hesitated. "Tomorrow. Tonight is just for us and your family." She nodded, understanding without judgment. "And when we start planning, what do you want to do about your siblings?" The question hung between us, the elephant in the room that would need addressing. "I honestly don't know yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to be the bigger person. Another part remembers exactly how it felt to be the only family member not invited to 3 separate weddings." "Whatever you decide, I support you," she assured me, her hand warm in mine. "They're your family, but this is our wedding. We make the rules." The following day, I called my parents with the news. Their genuine happiness came through clearly, my mother crying tears of joy, and my father's voice gruff with emotion. Neither mentioned my siblings until the very end of the call. "Have you told Marcus, Allison, and Jack yet?" my mother asked hesitantly. "No," I replied honestly. "I'm not sure I'm going to." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "They've changed, Hudson, since you've been gone. I think they've realized some things." "That's good to hear," I responded neutrally. "But it doesn't erase the past." After the call, I posted a simple engagement announcement on social media, the platform my siblings most actively used. Within hours, congratulatory comments appeared from friends, colleagues, and extended family. Notably absent were any reactions from Marcus, Allison, or Jack, though I knew they'd seen the post. 3 days later, my mother called again, her tone cautious. "Your siblings saw your engagement announcement. They're very happy for you." "Are they?" Interesting they couldn't tell me directly. "Hudson," she sighed. "Can we talk about this in person? Maybe your father and I could fly out to Seattle next month. We could discuss the wedding plans and other things." The other things clearly meant my siblings, but her willingness to come to me rather than expecting me to return to Portland represented a shift. I agreed to dinner when they visited, setting the first boundary: just you and Dad, not at our apartment, a public restaurant. In the weeks before their visit, Sophia and I began preliminary wedding planning. We agreed on a spring ceremony at a waterfront venue near Seattle, small enough to feel intimate, but large enough to accommodate the people who truly mattered in our lives. Sophia's large, extended family would make up about half the guest list, with my close friends, colleagues, and chosen family forming the remainder. My parents arrived on a Friday evening, checking into a downtown hotel before meeting us at an upscale restaurant overlooking Puget Sound. My mother hugged me tightly, her perfume triggering childhood memories I'd thought long forgotten. My father, grayer and slightly stooped, clapped my shoulder with uncharacteristic emotion. After ordering, my mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "We're so proud of you, Hudson. The life you've built here, your success, finding Sophia, everything you've accomplished." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely moved by her sincerity. "We owe you an apology," my father said, surprising me with his directness. "Your mother and I have done a lot of thinking since you stepped back from family gatherings. We failed you. We allowed your siblings to exclude you repeatedly, and we prioritized keeping peace over standing up for what was right." The simple acknowledgement, so many years overdue, caused an unexpected tightness in my throat. "Why now?" I managed to ask. Why recognize this after all this time? Because losing you from our lives made us realize what we'd done, my mother answered, tears brimming. The empty chair at holidays, the silence where your updates should be. We finally understood how you must have felt all those years present but unseen. Their apology felt genuine, their regret palpable across the white tablecloth and flickering candles. Decades of pain couldn't dissolve in a single conversation, but something shifted in me, a willingness to consider that people could change, could recognize their mistakes, could do better. I appreciate that, I said finally. It means a lot to hear you say it. We'd like to help with the wedding if you'll let us, my father offered. Financially and otherwise, whatever you and Sophia want. We'll think about it, I replied, not quite ready to fully embrace their offer. As dessert arrived, my mother tentatively approached the subject I knew was inevitable. Your siblings have asked about the wedding. They want to know if they'll be included. I set down my fork, the momentary peace disrupted. After excluding me from all 3 of their weddings? Why would they expect an invitation to mine? They regret their actions, my father insisted. They've grown up, Hudson. Seeing you build your life without them has been a wake-up call. Words are easy, I countered. Have they actually expressed this regret to me? Has even one of them reached out directly? My parents exchanged glances. They're afraid you'll reject them, my mother admitted. They know how badly they hurt you. As our conversation continued, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could perpetuate the cycle of exclusion, giving my siblings exactly what they'd given me, a taste of being the outsiders, the forgotten ones. Or I could break the pattern, extend the invitation they'd never offered me, and potentially begin healing wounds that had festered for decades. By the end of dinner, I hadn't committed either way but had agreed to think about it. Back in our apartment that night, Sophia and I discussed the situation at length. What do you really want to do? She asked, curled beside me in bed. Not what you think you should do, or what would teach them a lesson, but what would make our wedding day perfect for you. I considered her question carefully. Honestly, I want them to understand how it felt. I want them to experience what they put me through. But I don't want to become them in the process. That night, as Sophia slept beside me, inspiration struck. There was a third option, a perfect middle ground that would provide both the karmic response I craved and the opportunity for growth my parents believed my siblings deserved. The next morning, I outlined my plan to Sophia, who listened with widening eyes before breaking into appreciative laughter. That's actually brilliant, she admitted. Exactly the right balance of consequence and opportunity. With her approval, I began detailed wedding planning in earnest. We selected a stunning waterfront venue with views of the Olympic Mountains, chose a color scheme that complemented the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest, and created a website to share details with our guests. Most importantly, I crafted a special section of our guest list, 3 entries that would receive very particular invitations, designed to deliver a powerful message years in the making. Executing my plan required precision and attention to detail, qualities I'd developed through years of professional design work. While Sophia coordinated with caterers and florists, I focused on creating 3 specialized cards that only appeared to be wedding invitations. I selected heavy cream cardstock identical to our actual invitations, commissioned the same calligrapher, and used matching envelopes and wax seals. To the casual observer, these 3 pieces would be indistinguishable from the genuine invitations being sent to our actual guests. The content, however, was carefully crafted to mirror the excuses my siblings had used over the years. For Marcus, the eldest who had claimed strict guest limits while inviting 200 others, I wrote, Hudson Walker and Sophia Liu request you to acknowledge that due to strict guest limits at our upcoming wedding celebration, we are unable to accommodate you or your spouse. While other extended family members will be attending, we've made the difficult decision to prioritize those with whom we share meaningful connections. For Allison, who had excluded me under the guise of a friends-only wedding while inviting every other family member, her card read, Hudson Walker and Sophia Liu are pleased to announce their wedding celebration, which will include those friends and family members who have consistently shown support throughout our relationship. As this is a gathering of people who genuinely care about both of us, We don't think you'd fit in with the authentic community we've created. For Jack, who had claimed an intimate, immediate family-only ceremony while planning an elaborate event, I crafted, Hudson Walker and Sophia Liu, invite you to understand that our upcoming wedding will include only those we consider immediate family as we define it. While this definition encompasses extended relatives, close friends, and colleagues who have been present in our lives, it unfortunately doesn't extend to siblings who have systematically excluded us from their major life events. Each card included a small photo of Sophia and me, surrounded by our chosen family of friends, along with the actual date and location of our wedding. At the bottom of each, I added a final touch. Information you're not invited to use. The design was beautiful, the message unmistakable, the execution flawless. When I showed the completed cards to my parents during their final day in Seattle, they were initially shocked. "Hudson, this seems harsh," my mother began, reading Marcus's card with widened eyes. "Is it?" I countered. "These are literally their own words and actions reflected back at them. I'm not doing anything they haven't already done to me." 3 separate times. My father studied each card carefully before nodding slowly. "It's actually fair. Painful, but fair. They excluded you completely. You're giving them the truth with a path forward." "Exactly," I agreed. "I'm not prohibiting them from reaching out or trying to make amends. I'm simply showing them exactly how their behavior felt, using their own justifications." After thoughtful discussion, my parents reluctantly agreed to support my approach, recognizing it as a proportional response rather than malicious revenge. My mother even admitted, maybe this is what they need to truly understand the impact of their choices. I mailed the cards with delivery confirmation, ensuring they would arrive simultaneously at each sibling's home. Then I waited, knowing the carefully crafted messages would trigger exactly the reaction I anticipated. The explosion came 48 hours later. My phone buzzed with a group text from Marcus. "What the hell is this, Hudson? Some kind of sick joke?" Allison chimed in seconds later. "This is petty and childish. I thought you were supposed to be the mature one." Jack, typically the most blunt, wrote simply, "Not cool, man. Not cool at all." I didn't respond to the group chat, letting them simmer in the uncomfortable recognition of their own tactics. My parents reported being bombarded with angry calls, which they handled by calmly pointing out that my siblings were experiencing exactly what they had repeatedly subjected me to. Marcus was the first to call me directly, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I get that you're upset about the past, but this is taking it too far." "Is it?" I asked calmly. "I'm simply using the exact same excuses you used when excluding me from your wedding. How does it feel to be on the receiving end?" "It feels like crap," he admitted after a long pause. "But that was years ago, Hudson. People change. Convenient that you've changed just in time to attend my wedding." He had no response to that. Allison left a tearful voicemail about the importance of family and how hurt she was, the irony apparently lost on her, that she was expressing the exact feelings she had dismissed when they were mine. Jack took the most direct approach, showing up at my office building unannounced one afternoon. The receptionist called up, and against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him in the lobby. "We need to talk about this," he said, holding up the non-invitation. "What's there to talk about? You excluded me from your wedding claiming it was immediate family only while inviting 200 guests. I'm simply returning the favor." "It wasn't personal," he insisted, echoing words that had cut deeply years before. "That makes it worse, not better," I replied. "You hurt me so casually you didn't even consider it significant." For the next 30 minutes, I calmly listed every exclusion, every dismissal, every moment they had deliberately made me feel unwelcome in my own family. With each example, Jack's defensive posture diminished until he finally sat heavily on a lobby bench, looking genuinely shaken. "I never thought about it from your perspective," he admitted. "We just always saw you as separate, because you chose to," I pointed out. "Every single day for decades, you chose to treat me as an outsider." For the first time in our adult lives, I saw genuine remorse in his expression. "I'm sorry, Hudson. I really am. We screwed up." "Yes, you did." I stood to end the conversation. "And now you know exactly how it feels." As I walked back to the elevator, he called after me. "So that's it? We're not invited, period?" I turned back briefly. The cards weren't actual invitations, Jack. They were mirrors. What happens next depends on all of you. That evening, Sophia held me as I processed the confrontations, assuring me I had done nothing wrong by finally standing up for myself. "They needed to feel what you felt," she insisted. "Sometimes people can't understand pain until they experience it themselves." My parents navigated an awkward position between their children, trying to mediate without taking sides. Extended family members began reaching out, some supportive of my stance, others urging forgiveness without accountability. I maintained firm boundaries throughout, neither closing the door completely nor rushing to absolve decades of hurt without genuine change. Social media became a battleground briefly, with vague posts from Allison about family harmony and forgiveness clearly aimed at garnering sympathy. I remained silent online, refusing to engage in public family drama. Those who truly knew me understood. Those who didn't matter didn't understand. Through it all, I felt an unexpected lightness. After years of carrying the weight of rejection, I had finally addressed it directly, instead of pretending it didn't hurt. The response cards hadn't been about revenge, but about truth holding up a mirror to behavior my siblings had never been forced to confront. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being hurt, dismissed, or forgotten. I had reclaimed my power and made them feel just briefly what I had endured repeatedly. And in doing so, I had opened the possibility, however small, for genuine change. Our wedding day dawned with perfect Pacific Northwest weather, clear blue skies with just enough cloud cover to create spectacular photographs against the Olympic Mountains. The waterfront venue looked exactly as we'd envisioned, with simple, elegant decorations that complemented rather than competed with the natural beauty surrounding us. As I stood in a private room adjusting my tie, my phone buzzed with an unexpected text from Marcus. "We're all at the coffee shop 2 blocks from your venue. Could we talk before the ceremony?" "Just 5 minutes." I showed the message to Tyler, my best man and oldest friend, who raised an eyebrow. "Your call, man. But whatever you decide, don't let them hijack your day." After a moment's consideration, I replied, "Lobby of the venue, 15 minutes, all 3 of you." Sophia was in another room with her bridesmaids, and I decided not to involve her in this potential drama before our ceremony. This was my family issue to resolve, and today of all days, I needed to handle it with clarity and strength. At the appointed time, I walked to the venue's empty lobby, finding all 3 siblings standing awkwardly near the entrance. They were dressed formally, Marcus and Jack in suits, Allison in a conservative blue dress. For a moment, seeing them together triggered a flood of childhood memories, most painful but a few precious. "Thank you for meeting us," Marcus began, clearly designated as spokesman. "We know this is your wedding day, and we don't want to intrude. Yet here you are," I observed, neutrally. "We deserve the cards you sent," Allison interjected, her voice catching. "Every word of them." Jack nodded in agreement. "It took feeling what you felt to really understand, and even then it's just a fraction, because you experienced that rejection 3 separate times." I studied their faces, searching for the familiar dismissiveness or condescension, but found only genuine regret. "Why the sudden enlightenment? You've had decades to consider how your actions affected me." Marcus stepped forward slightly. "The truth is, I've been jealous of you since we were kids. You were always smarter, more focused, more capable of doing things on your own. Mom and Dad praised your independence while constantly cleaning up my messes. I followed Marcus's lead," Allison admitted. "It was easier to exclude you than to admit you made me feel inadequate. When you started achieving everything I struggled with, good grades, scholarship, career, keeping you at a distance protected my ego." Jack, always the most direct, simply said, "We were shitty siblings, Hudson. There's no excuse for it. The cards you sent us were the wake-up call we needed." Their candor surprised me. I had expected defensiveness or demands, not this raw acknowledgement. "I appreciate your honesty. It's new territory for our family." "We don't expect to attend your wedding," Marcus clarified. "We know we haven't earned that. We just wanted you to know that we understand what we did wrong, and were truly sorry. For a moment, I considered the possibilities. I could send them away, maintaining the boundaries I'd established. I could invite them to witness the ceremony from the back, a symbolic half-inclusion, or I could do what they had never done for me, make space where there had been none before. I spent years hoping for inclusion that never came, I said finally. I wanted my brothers and sister at life's biggest moments, and you chose to exclude me from all of yours. Today is about building a new family with Sophia, one based on choice rather than obligation. Their faces fell, clearly expecting rejection. But maybe that's the point, I continued. I'm choosing to be different from you, not because I've forgotten, or because the hurt doesn't matter, but because I don't want to perpetuate the cycle. I checked my watch. The ceremony starts in 45 minutes. If you want to attend just the ceremony, not the reception, there will be seats in the back row. Your choice. Without waiting for their response, I returned to my preparation room, feeling strangely peaceful. Whether they stayed or left, I had reclaimed my power by making the choice they had never offered me. The ceremony itself was everything we'd hoped for, intimate, joyful, and authentic. As Sophia walked toward me on her father's arm, her radiant smile reflected everything good in my life. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to create family together, to build connection rather than walls, to choose each other every day. During my vows, I included a line that held special meaning. I promise to create with you the kind of family where everyone feels valued, where belonging isn't earned but freely given, where love isn't conditional but constant. From the corner of my eye, I spotted them 3 figures in the back row. Marcus wiping his eyes, Allison leaning against Jack's shoulder. They had chosen to stay, to witness, to respect my terms rather than impose their own. My father's toast at the small reception, which my siblings did not attend, honoring my boundaries, touched on the journey that had brought us to this day. Hudson, he said, voice thick with emotion, has taught our family what real strength looks like, not the kind that excludes or diminishes others, but the kind that remains open despite hurt, that builds bridges where walls once stood. Sophia, you found a man who understands the true value of family because he had to create his own. We're grateful to be part of your celebration today. The reception celebrated with those who had consistently shown up for me, Tyler, and his parents who had provided refuge during difficult holidays, college friends who had become family, colleagues who had become confidants, and of course, Sophia's warm, welcoming family, who had embraced me without reservation. As we prepared to leave for our honeymoon in New Zealand, Sophia squeezed my hand. Any regrets about how you handled things? None, I replied honestly. For the first time, I set the terms of engagement with my siblings instead of accepting whatever scraps of inclusion they offered. Whatever happens next will be different because of that. 3 weeks later, returning from our honeymoon to our apartment, filled with unpacked wedding gifts, I found a text message from Jack. We're starting a monthly family dinner at Marcus's place. First Sunday of every month. No pressure, but there will always be places for you and Sophia if you ever want to join. I showed the message to Sophia, who raised an eyebrow. What do you think? Want to go? Not immediately, I replied, but maybe someday. On our terms, not theirs. 6 months later, we did attend our first family dinner, arriving with clear boundaries and leaving with tentative hope. The dynamics had shifted noticeably. My siblings made genuine efforts to include me in conversations, asked questions about our life in Seattle, and showed interest in getting to know Sophia. The road to healing family wounds is long and rarely straight. Some days brought progress, others setbacks. But the wedding cards had accomplished what decades of silence couldn't, forcing my siblings to truly see the impact of their choices and begin the work of genuine change. Last Christmas, for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly included in family celebrations. The moment that crystallized this shift came when Marcus asked me to help his teenage son with college applications, valuing my experience and perspective. Allison requested my feedback on a business idea. Jack saved me a seat next to him at dinner. Small gestures, perhaps, but revolutionary in the context of our family history. What I learned through this journey is that sometimes people need to experience what they dish out before they can truly understand its impact. My revenge wasn't about hurting them, but about holding up a mirror that finally forced them to see what they had done. And in that reflection, they found the motivation to change. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who treated you unfairly? Would you have handled things differently in my situation? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family isn't selfish. It's sometimes the only path to genuine connection. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, the family we choose can be as meaningful as the one we're born into.